Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? It looks like it could be a pretty efficient meeting. So if we want to look at the agenda, the first item on the agenda is call to order, welcome, and roll call. And so welcome to everyone who is here. The roll call is that Michael Beers is running late and Trustee McDonald and Duggar both had other obligations that they could not be here tonight. And I think other than that, everybody else is here. So with that, we move on to item number 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we can all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we're looking at to review, revise, and approve the agenda. And I have just one question. Megan, are we still going to have executive session? Okay, I didn't know if that was still a go. Any requests to change things around on the agenda? Seeing none, then we'll go ahead on to item number 4, which is to approve the minutes from the Board of Trustees special meeting from August 17th, 2017. And is any corrections, any typos? See none, then is there a motion to approve the special meeting minutes from August 17th, 2017? Moved by Trustee Kendall, seconded by Trustee Smith. All those in favor of approving those minutes, please indicate by raising your hand. And that is unanimous as to all trustees present. Then we move on to public comment. This is public comment on non-agenda items. We hold public comment on non-agenda items at the beginning and end of every meeting so that people who either have work obligations that can't get them there at the beginning still have an opportunity to provide public comment. This is public comment on items that the board won't be discussing tonight. Because we have to comply with the Open Meeting Act as well as some other state laws, we as a board can't discuss items that have not been noticed up to the public for discussion, but while we're here, and if there's anything that you want to bring to the board's attention, whether it's a good thing, bad thing, a thing of information, something that you'd like to be looked into, we certainly listen to what you're saying. There won't be a discussion, and so we ask each person who comes forward, if you can say your name, if you have an unusual spelling of either your first or last name, spell your name. If you represent an organization, identify that organization, and we try to limit the comments to about 3 minutes. So thanks.
Thanks. Good evening. My name is Melanie Charleston. I serve as president of the Missoula Education Association and vice president for MEA MFT, and I cannot believe it's the end of September. It's been a whirlwind start. A lot of activity going on in classrooms and a lot of really awesome opportunities for all of our students and educators here in MCPS. I had an opportunity to spend 2 days last week in Washington, D.C. with Superintendent Thane and Director of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Guest, as well as second grade teacher Jenny Malloy. The 4 of us serve as the leads for our NEA NIC, Network Improvement Community Project, that, reminding you, was a grant that was awarded to us this summer. We've been involved in, I believe this was our fourth meeting of activities. We worked in collaboration with the teams, union and administrative teams from Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, and North Clackamas, as well as facilitators from the Carnegie Foundation and the New Teacher Center, as well as NEA. So they were 2 really packed days of different ways of digging deep into causal analysis and data regarding teacher retention. We spent Tuesday morning at the Learning Policy Institute for a few hours in DC, where they were then rolling out their research on teacher retention, why it matters, and what we can do about it. Some interesting data that I'll just share briefly here. This is just kind of gives you a taste of some things we'll be diving deep into. They shared some interesting data. I don't have enough form here for you, but just right here on how it varies widely by state. Montana ranks 6th in the states regarding teacher turnover on an annual basis here. And if we look at our, just some figures in, this is the state, this is not necessarily Missoula, but roughly 18% of educators turnover in a given year. Approximately 4% of those are to retirement. About 3 are those who just are leaving the profession, and about another 11% within the state move. So that could be within the district itself or from one district to another within the state or out of state. So those would be those who are remaining. And then we looked at some data on causes and factors. And the top 5 factors that were shared with us include dissatisfaction. This includes accountability pressures, administrative support, teaching conditions, and that represented roughly 55%. Others cited personal reasons or family reasons. They had a change in family structure. About 30% were involved in retirement. It was time for them to enjoy that portion of life. And another 30% or so chose to pursue another job. And about 18% chose a financial reason. They were just unable to make ends meet within the profession. So these are a few of the topics of which we'll be delving into deeply. We have another meeting in November and quite a bit of work to do in between. We have interviews set up for towards the end of this week. We're bringing in 2 FTE. Hopefully they'll be onboarded by mid next week. And then we'll be digging deeper into the program and bringing on some mentors. So we'll be updating you on this really exciting project as we move forward. So thanks so much.
Melanie,
Thank you.
just a quick question.
No questions.
Well,
It's public
just
comment.
to explain her fact. I just want to,
You'll have to call her privately.
okay.
Yeah, sorry. It's public comment, and we have to follow the rules for everybody in public comment, so there's always an opportunity to follow up privately with anyone who provides comment. So, any other public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, then we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 6A, which is the Health Insurance Trust Fund Report. And so found in the packet in the attachments to the agenda beginning on page 10 is the routine Health Insurance Trust Fund Report for the months of July and August, and we see these on a regular basis. Then we move on to 6B, which are announcements from the superintendent. I see Superintendent Thane has moved to the podium.
Thank you. I'll come out to the podium for the first of my announcements. It's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight and to present to you our new Director of Technology, Ray Cooper. And as many of you would suspect, we've been engaged in a great deal of work with technology in the district, whether it's our fiber project, whether it's developing robust technology in the buildings, or professional development so that staff and students can take the greatest opportunity to work with the technology tools that are available. And so it was with certain amount of trepidation that we saw both Hatton and Russ choose to take different paths in the district. But I'm here to tell you tonight, we scored. We are very fortunate to have hired an extremely competent and well-schooled Director of Technology. Ray comes to us most recently from Sacramento City School District, where she was in a school system much larger than Missoula as the Instructional Technology Director. And she has a particular strength on the professional development side. And as we have developed robust technology, I think the next frontier for us in the district is to make sure that we take the best use of that tool that we have at our disposal. So I appreciate having Ray here. Her background obviously is as a classroom teacher, as a building level administrator before moving into technology. And so with that, I'll just turn it over briefly to Ray so that she can introduce herself. Sure. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I am very happy to be in Missoula. My husband and family, we are just so excited to be here, and especially with this school district. I'm seeing phenomenal things with technology, and I can't wait to continue to move us forward. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Continuing with my report.
Okay.
It was awfully brief there. You know, every 2 weeks you come together for a board meeting, and you have a packet and all the support materials that are very well developed. Oftentimes we're dealing with board policy revisions. In fact, we've done 28 of those revisions in the last 2 years. And
the bulk of that work, of course, is done behind the scenes by Carol White, who has been the executive administrative assistant in the superintendent's office. Next week, Carol celebrates a birthday, and she's chosen for her birthday celebration to retire. So she will be retiring next Tuesday, October 3rd, will be her final day with the district. And although Carol's not often at the board meetings, I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to publicly thank her for her service to the district and wish her nothing but the best as she transitions to retirement. So, Carol, we appreciate all you've done for us, and hopefully she'll see that reflected in the minutes, Elizabeth. A couple other quick notes. Yesterday was a professional learning day in the district, so students were not in class. Staff engaged in a variety of activities with regard to development of school goals and continuous school improvement plans, district initiatives, and legal workshop for special ed, MANT training for some of our staff, just a whole host of activities. And again, those days are critical to us, and we appreciate the investment of time and energy on the part of our staff to be engaged in that professional learning. And that certainly impacts the quality of education that we have in the classroom. So I just wanted to acknowledge all who participated yesterday. As Melanie referenced, we spent some time in DC last week, and of course it's nice to visit DC, but we come back with lots of work to do. There is one stat that Melanie didn't cite that I would like to call to your attention. We've been very fortunate in this district that when we post positions, we tend to have a large number of high-quality applicants. But it's something I think we can't take for granted. Last school year, the school year commenced with nationwide 100,000 positions, teaching positions, that were not filled. And so we're either occupied by uncertified staff or long-term subs. We're seeing that start to creep into Montana. The place we tend to see fewer applications right now in our district is special education. But across the state, there are positions that had gone unfilled and actually have resulted in people from other countries with work visas coming in to fill on a short-term basis teaching positions. So I think that underscores the need for us to be proactive, and I appreciate the commitment of NEA, our local MEA, as well as the district to try and get ahead of the curve and really be positioning ourselves to address issues around teacher recruitment and retention. But as Melanie indicated, it's also about job satisfaction. That's one of the most critical factors. So I really believe we're in a position where we can move the needle and look forward to the continued work. So thank you for that commitment. We, as you know, live in a city that talks a great deal about sustainability, and you may or may not know that Missoula has a zero waste initiative by the year 2050. And we've had some conversation about sustainability and those activities at the board level. I did want to let you know that we are partnering with the city, with Home Resource, with Climate Smart Missoula, and we actually have an Energy Corps volunteer who will begin next week working with us. We'll support that individual half-time, and it will be supported, the position will be supported half-time through Home Resource. The major projects will be to help us as a district develop some goals that are in alignment with the city's zero waste initiative, but also to help work with Franklin Elementary School. Franklin has volunteered to be part of a pilot project on a zero waste initiative as an elementary school, and then also to work on the 5th grade ZWAP program, which is a Zero Waste Ambassadors program. And again, if the city is going to be successful on a zero waste initiative, we need to educate students and families about it. And then she'll also be working on development of some 6th grade curriculum that aligns with the next generation science standards and the Montana as well as our district science standards. So Katie Anderson will begin next week, and you will likely hear from her from time to time. And we're excited to be finally positioned to begin to take on that work. The last item I'd mention is that we have our first regularly scheduled October board meeting, which is October 10th, scheduled to be held at Seeley Swan High School. So annually we do 2 meetings at Seeley. We will be in contact with trustees about carpool options to get to Sealy, but please mark your calendars and note that we will be in Sealy on October 10th. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we come to 6C, which are announcements from trustees. Do any trustees have any announcements? Okay, then we move on to 7A1, which is Fine Arts Standards Adoption. At this point, this is an information-only item because for those of you who have reviewed the documents on the website, it's about 400 pages, and it demonstrates a huge amount of work that has gone into this. So we want to make sure we'll look at them as an information-only item tonight and be able to ask questions, and then we will see these for adoption at some time in the future, but it is information only tonight. So, Mrs. Robitaille?
Thank you. I'm Julie Robitaille, Executive Regional Director for the South Region Schools. In addition to serving these 9 schools, I also have the privilege of overseeing the Fine Arts Department and supervising Mr. John Combs in his role as Fine Arts Supervisor. Dr. Guest, Elise Guest, is out of town at the State Assessment Conference in Helena, so I feel fortunate that I get to introduce this tonight. John collaborated with Dr. Guest and the teaching and learning coaches over the course of last school year to engage in the curriculum development and review process. And so John's here tonight to report on this work and present the fine arts curriculum for you review and eventual, hopefully, adoption as MCPS curriculum. So without further ado, I'll introduce John Combs.
Thank you. We former band directors always appreciate a little applause as we get going. I got to tell you, kind of serendipitously, that Ray helped get this set up because I wasn't familiar with the operating system. But Ray also comes from Sacramento, which was the first Any Given Child site. And now she's here. I think that's really kind of cool. All right, so the arts have always served as a unique vehicle for discovering who we are. The arts develop ways of thinking as disciplined as science or math, and as diverse as philosophy or literature. The arts are used by and have shaped every culture and individual on earth. They continue to infuse our lives on nearly all levels, generating a significant part of the creative and intellectual capital that drives our economy. And speaking of economy, I thought it was interesting that a recent study showed that the arts in Missoula generate over $54 million in total economic activity. So, dramatic impact. So what I've got here for you is kind of the layout of how we've been doing things. So back last year, the build background knowledge was just kind of establishing what we were going to use as our basis for moving forward. We deconstructed learning targets in September, got our team together to analyze the standards and prioritize the standards for each of the grade levels and courses. And then just this last, this month, and a lot of our time has been spent reviewing our priority standards and initiating the scope and sequence as we delivered these packages. Of course, you have them digitally, but this is what it looks like on paper. I always kind of need a little paper help. But essentially what we did was we always go for the highest level that we possibly can here in Missoula. So we took the national core art standards, and they are significantly different than the national standards were a few years ago. So the process of reinventing our curriculum and putting them into these new standards was a monumental task. And I just so appreciate the staff that worked on this. They really gave it their all to make sure that we had it. And we're also a little bit early doing this. So there wasn't anybody to copy. So we were really the people that are doing it. And now I find it interesting that I'm the guy that people are calling to say, hey, you got those standards done? It's kind of nice. So our department focus areas was all of this, which is basically our fine arts program. We took the standards from the National Core Arts Standards and made up of the National Coalition for Core Arts Standards, which includes dance and media arts, music, drama, and visual arts. That's kind of what it looks like. If you go to that their page, you can see that they have a nicely laid out website there where people can go into that and look under each of those areas and find specific information regarding standards. It's proven to be very helpful. Basically, I'm going to cover these areas tonight. On philosophical foundations, I guess I just like to say that the arts change the way we think. They open horizons and expose that which is under the carpet. The arts expand expectations. They put you into doubt. They allow you to project and to dream. The arts change the world on a micro level and therefore are difficult to measure. They can foster dialogue and conversation. Artistic creativity is not an added educational bonus. It's a critical element of human existence. When I talk about the lifelong goals there, it speaks of these standards talk about not just what are we going to try and get through today's lesson and to the end of the year, but what do we want these young people to become? Always thought it was interesting that if you go in, and I probably have related this to you before, you go into a kindergarten classroom and you say, hey, how many of you guys are artists? They all raise their hand. You go into a senior classroom, that may not be the case. We aim to change that. In fact, I would have it that if I walk into a school board meeting and I say, hey, how many of you are artists? All of you would raise your hand. That's the goal. That's the lifelong goals, essentially. And then we're going to talk about the artistic processes, the understanding by design model, and how we're going to make these assessments. Okay, it almost works. There we go. So the artistic processes are as follows. Creating, which is conceiving and developing new artistic ideas and work. So what is that? What do we do to create? Interesting thing about this is that there are some of our fine arts that creating is that's a natural, of course. If you're going to sit down and draw, paint, you're creating. Maybe not so much the case in music. We tend to be the people that perform the music that's already been created. So now we want to push the envelope a little bit in there, make that happen for them. Performing, presenting, and producing if you're going to show off your work, you're going to do one of those things. Obviously, visual artists aren't performers necessarily, but musicians are. But the others are interested in presenting and producing. So you take those artistic ideas and then work through interpretation and presentation. The visual artists, interestingly enough, are really hot on creating, but their presenting model, that makes them a little bit nervous. So it's been fun to see, where this pushes everybody's buttons. Responding is understanding and evaluating how the arts convey meaning. We've got to be able to get that message out. And then how do we connect that with ourselves and others in our community? What's the connecting model? Understanding by design is where we want to go with our learners. So we talk about enduring understandings. What are the big ideas? What's the framework of what you're doing? What are the core elements in what you're creating here? And why is it worth knowing these things? And then again, establishing a value for a lifetime, not just for today's test. Essential questions that are answered are not in one word. These are not yes or no. This is not a yes or no curriculum. This is much wider than that. We want to provoke inquiry, demand transfer. So it's not just happening in the arts, but where else is it going? Your art, your artistic creativity, it should be every part of your being and everything that you do, no matter what the subject area. And so hopefully that all leads to retention with meaning. There are a set of anchor standards in this curriculum that are common to all disciplines, and this is a little different than it was before. So dance, music, theater, visual arts, media arts all have the same anchor standards, which is why some are being pushed in areas that they are not very comfortable with. And so I think it's a really wonderful thing. 11 general standards to anchor and focus work, and then an overarching framework for these discipline-specific standards. We are dealing with benchmarks and learning targets under each standard that are standard specific, based on best practice, and focused, and development and assessment is within our PLC model, which we have loved working with. I tell you, musicians, artists, they love to get together with musicians and artists and talk about student achievement. I mean, it's our bag. With that will be some model cornerstone assessments. These are under development. There are some that are out there given to us. I got to tell you, quite frankly, I think some of them are really good and others of them are not so great because they are under development. As these standards roll out and as more schools and more teachers become familiar with them, it is their opportunity to set up their assessment models and how they do that and then share them across the country. And then those model cornerstone assessments that really are working are going to be made public to everybody. So we're working on all of those things, and I won't read all that stuff to you, but that's how it's all done. Oh, there was a thanks up there that went by way too fast. I hit the button twice, but I can do that pretty easily. My thanks are, first of all, to the Teaching and Learning Office. This was a kind of a new process to do it this way, and Dr. Guest and the coaching staff there were absolutely instrumental in making that happen for us. It was because the job was so big, there was a moment where we just felt a little bit hopeless, and they just provided guidance every step of the way, and I'm so appreciate it. In the front of each document are the staff members that worked on this. They went way beyond the time that was set aside to work on curriculum. They were really into making sure that this was going to be a great document. So I would invite you to read those names and see who those people were, because they were terrific. I even thank here for the United States Congress for supporting the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. The arts are a part of a core curriculum. They are who we are. It's a valuable part of being a well-rounded kid, and that's what we want. And then, of course, I'm so appreciative of being a staff member for Missoula County Public Schools. I know I've mentioned this to you before, but in my Northwest Division leadership, I go out and I talk about what's going on in Missoula, and people look at me like I'm some sort of an alien. That they find this so remarkable, what we're able to accomplish through Spark or through our curriculum project. It's just been great. I have one final comment. The arts fulfill the college and career readiness needs of our students, laying the foundations for the success of our schools and ultimately the success of our nation. The central purposes of education standards are to identify the learning that we want for all of our students and to drive improvement in the system that delivers that learning. Standards, therefore, should embody the key concepts, processes, and traditions of study in each subject area and articulate the aspirations of those invested in our schools, students, teachers, administrators, and the community at large. To realize that end goal, the National Core Arts Standards are framed by a definition of artistic literacy that includes philosophical foundations and lifelong goals, artistic processes, and creative practices, anchor and performance standards that students should attain, and model cornerstone assessments by which they can be measured. The connective threads of this conceptual framework are designed to be understood by all stakeholders and ultimately to ensure success for both educators and students in the real world of the school. The arts transform student lives in ways that are unprecedented. So I'm really happy to have this available for you to look over, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
And so just as I had indicated earlier, we'll be looking at these again in much more detail, and they'll be out for public comment, so if there is public comment, we'll have access to any comments or suggestions as well. But John has indicated he'd be happy to answer any questions. Trustee Smith.
Thanks, John. I'm really proud of our fine arts and the work that you do and all the people that work for you. It's really a great program, all the programs that you guys have. Can you touch on, and to be honest, I wish we can get more arts, especially at the younger levels, but at all levels. Can you talk about whether or not it came into the discussion about art as not just art class, but more throughout the day and how that can help us, or if there's any efforts to kind of help or make more available art instruction and using art in the other classes.
Well, I
Kind of
think that-
overlap, I guess, is what I'm looking for. And if it's not part of this, I can understand.
No, it is definitely a part of the discussion. This aspect is one of the things that I found I'm so proud of, especially with our connection with Spark and all that's being done in this community to make sure that we provide a great curriculum. The curriculum is, if you remember with the Any Given Child thing, that there are 3 legs to that, and that's arts enhancement, arts integration, and then arts for art's sake. And so this aspect is really the arts for art's sake portion. And so as any one of those 3 legs develops and grows, I think it enhances and it demands the strengthening of the others. So, yeah, we are very interested in making sure that we have in this document the ability to grow as we can.
Thanks. Sure.
If I could just add a comment in response to Trustee Smith. You'll recall as part of our Spark Arts Initiative, all K-8 teachers have been trained in arts integration through the Kennedy Center model, and that is certainly an important element in our effort to use arts to teach all content. It's a great modality to do so, and we'll continue to emphasize that. One of the considerations we have is the sustainability as we bring on new staff and making sure that we get appropriate training and staff development for them, but that's something we're working to attend to.
Great. I wanted to highlight that. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your commitment in this area. It's so evident in our schools, and it's so appreciated as a parent to know that my child's not just going to band class, but there's a bigger long-term picture here happening. I just had a question about the transfer of this information to the fine arts educators in the district. I don't know that I'm even familiar with how the fine arts PLCs are set up. So if you could talk a little bit about how this information gets out to them and then how they implement it eventually.
Boy, it's almost like I paid you to ask that question. Just yesterday, we had our PIR day, and the Fine Arts Department met as curriculum, and all these leaders that are in the front page here went over every step of their curriculum with their fellow staff members, and have already established their PLCs, which will meet, several times obviously throughout the year, to make sure that that curriculum is being handed down and passed out in appropriate ways. The thing I find so exciting with working with the teaching and learning community department this year is that this is not a document now that we put up on the shelf, okay, done that, check. It's a continual work in progress. We are constantly working on making sure that these learning targets and benchmarks are being met. If they need changes, we change them. Like I talked about with the model cornerstone assessments. I mean, we're leading the kind of on the leading edge here. They're going to want to know what are Missoula's model cornerstone assessments nationwide. So our staff is all about it. I mean, they're excited. I told them that they were going to get a gift, and I thought that would be a funny joke. Well, they really thought it as that. They took their thing, they were really excited to get them, so it was pretty fun. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thanks. This is a tremendous amount of work, so thank you so much for all of it and for sharing it, and look forward to digging deeper into it and seeing. And I'm, enough of an education geek to be really curious about some of the changes from old standards to new. And you mentioned some of them, for example, that there are kind of anchor standards that cut across disciplines now, that sort of thing. Can you just say maybe a little bit about what's going to change from the kid's eye view? Sort of what's the experience going to be like working within this new framework for the kids?
Sure, I'll give you one example if that's all right. So I mentioned that one of the challenges in the performance medium for the musical arts is create. We've been very good about taking Bach, Beethoven, Sousa, whomever, and play it the way it's supposed to be done. But now what about that kid's music? How do we start with a kid that you create the first 4 notes? What rhythm are you going to use with that? Okay, now let's have you play it. Why don't you guys get together in a quartet, and now you guys each take a measure and start developing their creative. And what do you think they're going to learn about if they're creating? What do you think they're going to learn the next time they do take a piece of great literature as to what was the process for that composer to do that? I think the admiration for what they have in front of them just, skyrockets. And they get an opportunity to perform their own piece.
Any other questions? Trustee Smith?
Just one final question, and I'm going to admit to you that I did not read every page of all of these yet. Not yet. I was telling to him. And I'm glad that you mentioned that this is a living document, because we've with other curriculum that we've had, I like the process of continually improving and stuff. And I think I may be answering my own question here, but I noticed in a couple of the documents, there were some references to some IB stuff, but there wasn't in the music one. Now, is that just because of kind of where we are at this point in time, that we don't offer IB orchestra, for instance, or band? I'm not sure if we do. I think we used to. And because of the continually evolving, not only the curriculum itself, but the student population, I guess, do we have that flexibility to kind of work it in as we move along, and if kids want it, I guess, is the real question.
Right, it is. We're starting where we are, and this is open to growth and adjustment. It's important that we be able to, that's part of the creative process, is to be able to, our goal is, it's this all means all, right? Any given child, it's everybody. So where is everybody? Who does not have the opportunity to be a creative individual? What can we do to make sure that happens? And that's going to mean making adjustments to curriculum. And so this document gives us the flexibility to do that.
Great.
Does that help?
It does, thanks.
Any other questions? See none. I just wanted, because we use so many acronyms in education, we've talked about PLCs, and it sounds like TLC, but with a P, which is actually pretty much kind of a parallel. But anyway, just to clarify, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we use professional learning communities now to let teachers who teach the same subject or the same area of educational expertise to work with each other, for example, yesterday, so that they can learn from each other and grow together. Right. So that's the PLC that we've been describing, is the opportunity that the district has set aside to let teachers work with teachers in their disciplines to share ideas and to grow from each other. Did I get it right?
You nailed it. Well done. Get an A.
Okay, so that's my only
Right.
question was to clarify what PLC means. Anything else? And this is information only at this point, but if there's any public comment, we'd love to hear it. Well, thanks, John. Thanks to everyone on your team. Public comment?
You have to come to the microphone.
Oh, yeah, and state your name if you have an unusual spelling.
Sure. Thanks, John. Appreciate the hard work. My question was just, you incorporated media arts into this. I haven't seen the document. Is media arts going to fall into fine arts, or is it going to stay within CTE? Because I think that's a really big question that's going to impact a lot of people, and I think if you could address that, that'd be great. Thank you.
That one's easy. I don't know.
Good point, though. Anything else from the public? Well, thanks, John. Thanks to you and your team and everyone for such tremendous dedication. We really appreciate it. And now we learn about another exciting opportunity. So I think Mrs. Robitaille is back at the podium to introduce some folks.
Thank you again for this opportunity. Again, I'm Julie Robitaille, and I'm excited and honored to introduce Dr. Ted Fuller, principal at Sentinel High School, and Ezra Shearer, the social studies teacher at Sentinel High School, who are here to present to you this evening regarding a new program and opportunity available to students at Sentinel High School this fall. And just to give you a little teaser without giving it away, because I want Ted to be able to do that, Sentinel High School is the first high school in the state to offer this program.
All right, thank you, Julie. I'm going to pass out to the trustees some information. So when you're home tonight, you're ready to fall asleep, you want to read something, here you go. This is an overview of AP Capstone, which we're going to talk more about tonight, as well as a one-page cheat sheet to help you understand the difference between, and some of the similarities between the IB diploma and the Capstone diploma. So, I will, sure. So AP stands for Advanced Placement. It is a college preparatory program that is a college preparatory program facilitated by the College Board, and IB is the International Baccalaureate Program facilitated by the IB organization, both college preparatory programs. All right, so like Julie said, I'm Ted Fuller, and it is my privilege to serve as the Sentinel High School principal. And this evening, Mr. Shearer and I are here to share some information about our implementation, not only of the AP Capstone diploma program, but a little bit about advanced placement at Sentinel as well. So starting, we always start with the why. And I share this with students, I share this with parents. Why advanced placement? And just some of the many things that I think benefit learners by challenging an advanced placement course, or at Sentinel, the AP Capstone Diploma. So grit is one, passion, perseverance, and purpose, which are the conditions of grit, and that's a huge piece. Transformational learning, self-improvement, lifelong learning, and on and on. So we really hone in on why do we offer this program to our students? Why do we believe it's valuable and important? So those are a few of the many reasons that compel us to be an AP school. So whoops, went a little, see if I can make it go back. There we go. No, I went really far. You might want to drive back there. Oh, technology. I'm probably doing something wrong, or the plate in my head is causing everything to go haywire here. Okay, so one more. One more back? Nope, forward. Okay, so AP at Sentinel. We currently offer 18 advanced placement courses, and I mentioned 2 Project Lead the Way computer science courses because the curriculum framework in the Project Lead the Way computer science mirrors the College Board precisely. So PLTW wrote the curriculum for the College Board computer science framework. So that's a mirror image. Our Project Lead the Way computer science is dual credit, so not many of those kids sit for the APCS exam, but they certainly could and would be prepared. Breakdown by content area, we have 1 AP art course, 1 AP music course, 1 in Spanish, 2 in English, 6 in social studies, 4 in science, and 3 in mathematics. Just to give you a sense of its representation in our master schedule, 6% of our overall master schedule is AP courses. So a lot of people think too much emphasis on advanced placement and a small percent of our students, but 6% I think is a balanced representation. We have 568 student enrollments in AP at Sentinel. So to clarify, that's not individual kids. That's some students who are taking multiple courses. So 568 total enrollments. And as Julie mentioned, we are Montana's first and only capstone diploma program, which we are really proud of. So we can jump ahead and see that map there with the 1 on Montana indicating Sentinel High School right next door is the only AP capstone program in the entire state and one of the few in the Northwest. So we're really proud of that. So we can jump ahead. So this is a 3-minute video that is put out by the College Board that I think says it maybe a little better than I could. So we'll take a second and. This adds an element of fun. It's like a party game.
This is one of the skills we teach.
Yeah, there you go.
AP Capstone is an innovative program for high school students designed in partnership with college faculty. Built on 2 new courses from the Advanced Placement Program, AP Capstone challenges students to select their own topics of study. In AP Seminar, students learn to evaluate the strength of an argument, pose solutions, collaborate, and communicate. In AP Research, students design, plan, and conduct a year-long investigation on a topic they choose. Both courses foster collaboration, research, and analytical writing.
Within AP Capstone, the seminar course is innovative for its flexibility. The research program has a similar focus of flexibility and innovation that we find attractive. Instructors and their students can choose the topic they're going to focus on. It has to be interdisciplinary, it has to be engaging, it has to be pressing.
The AP Capstone program is, I think, one of the most exciting innovations the College Board has ever come up with. And it's primarily because the teaching focus is shifted from content to skills. That is a paradigm shift.
The AP Capstone program was implemented in fall 2014 in 114 schools in the United States and in 22 schools throughout Canada, Europe, and Asia. The number of schools and students participating in the program are both expected to grow rapidly. Diversity in classes is fundamental to AP Capstone.
I see so much growth in the students over the year with writing and learning how to not just synthesize information, which is so critical, but also to draw conclusions and solutions and think about problems in the world around them. They also learn to work in teams and collaborate with each other, which is a critical skill in today's society.
I was sitting here listening to our students in some of the presentations, and I wasn't seeing 16 to 17-year-old high school students. I was seeing 20 to 21-year-old college students sitting here going through some of these topics that range anywhere from euthanasia to human trafficking, pop culture. Their intellectual maturity over the few months that we've had in the program is outstanding.
The AP Capstone classes really help students develop the ability to do inquiry, to learn about gathering information, what information to trust, or how to put that information in context, how to form an argument based on the data and the evidence and the information that they've got, and then how to communicate it.
AP Capstone exams are validated by an external team of expert faculty from high schools and colleges.
The external validation associated with AP Capstone does is it gives us a national standard. And for people like me that work in admissions and enrollment at selected universities, that in itself is of huge value. So we trust what we see.
The AP Capstone program, I think, is very unique. It's a broad program that gives skills that we think are very valuable, not only for college, but life skills. The ability to analyze, to critically think, to present that information is really wonderful. And I think both courses do a great job of preparing the student for the rest of their lives.
Fostering the research, argumentation, and communication skills that provide a foundation for college and career success.
All right, so if you just could minimize that super quick, I'm going to run through the rest of the info for you, and then, there we go. This is so challenging since you can't see the cursor. There you go. And then one more slide, advance, please. All right, nuts and bolts. So in order to earn the AP Capstone Diploma, a student must pass a minimum of 4 subject area external assessments. That's a minimum score of 3. They must complete the first of 2 capstone courses, AP Seminar, which we've launched this year. We have 22 students enrolled in AP Seminar. and also AP Research, which we will launch in 2018. The way we've structured it at Sentinel, sophomores or juniors can enroll in seminar, and juniors or seniors can enroll in research. Total cost of the program, $654. The training and supply costs for Sentinel have been funded through a mix of building and SHAPE 2.0 funds. Mr. Shear's training was sponsored by our SHAPE grant, and we're deeply thankful for that opportunity. Montana Western and Carroll currently award credit for the capstone diploma, and Margot Dunneman, our AP coordinator, is currently in negotiations with MSU and UM, and it is under curriculum review at those institutions in terms of accepting the capstone and delivering credit to incoming freshmen. So there are the nuts and bolts. So again, the full diploma, AP Seminar plus Research for 4 AP exams. And you might ask, how could a student pass an exam without taking a course? We had a student who is a capstone diploma candidate, transferred from an international school, sat for the AP Italian exam and got a 5, which is the highest score you can get, and that counts toward her 4 exams. A student who chooses to pursue just the 2 courses gets the AP Seminar and Research Certificate, which, as you saw from many people in admissions, says something and is externally validated and speaks to that student's ability in all those skills. So a little bit of information there. I'm going to go over this really quickly because I'm going to let Mr. Shearer, who's in the trenches, share more, so we can skip over that one. Lots of benefits for kids, just some highlights: research, argumentation, communication. It's interdisciplinary, which is potent. It just ramps up the relevancy, that opportunity to distinguish themselves. We can go forward. Just more information about that scholarly practice, academic rigor, and finally, I think we're at the end. The spirit of our program certainly captured by Socrates when he said, education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. And that represents that transition that you heard in the short video, the shift from content to skill. So that's a good segue for me to have Mr. Shearer come up here. We could not have a more dedicated, skillful, knowledgeable, caring teacher at the helm of our first course. I could list his accolades and credentials. They are extensive. We'd be here all night. So I'm really proud to have him come up and speak a little bit about AP Seminar. Mr. Shearer.
Thanks. I thought I was here just for questions, but that's all right.
Just share a little bit about the class.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. First of all, let me just give you a little bit of background about me. I didn't get into education to teach AP classes. That wasn't my end goal. I went to school in Athens, Ohio, which is a little Appalachian college town where Ohio University exists. My goal was to go to West Virginia and get 2 kids out of 100 to go to college so they could break that cycle of poverty. And I found myself in Missoula. And I can tell you one thing about teaching at Sentinel High School, particularly, there's no other place that I'd rather be teaching in the entire United States. We are so blessed in terms of our working conditions. Dave, Melanie, appreciate that, as well as our students and the community. Bond after bond for everything we want gets passed. It's amazing. So I'm really pleased to be here. That goal shifts now that I find myself here in this community, which looks a lot different than an Appalachian community. And now my goal is to get students to be successful and complete college at rates that are higher than the national average. Some of you in the room know what a 6% college loan feels like. Some of you don't. And that difference, that pressure is huge. And so if I can make college more affordable and more accessible to the middle class students that we're serving every single day, then that's that mission I want. With that in mind though, I'm not teaching this class because of those credits that are attached. I'm disinterested in that. For me, it's the skills and the curriculum, and this curriculum is amazing. It is entirely skills driven, and so you have a course that allows you to have the freedom to cater to each individual student's interest and where they are in terms of their excitement. And if I don't buy into that curriculum, then the course isn't successful, and I'm really excited about this curriculum. So I'm excited about the course. The easiest way I frame it, the little elevator pitch, is a 301J historical research methods course. Everyone takes a research methods course on their path to a master's degree or an undergraduate degree. And AP Seminar is that research methods course. And then AP Research is where you write that thesis statement, or thesis paper, I should say. We're working on thesis statements this week. But so that's the, the elevator pitch. But the course is amazing. It's dynamic. The skills-based aspect is what every student should have. It should be a requirement across the district and within Sentinel High School, because we need these skills. We need to be able to recognize, evaluate sources, engage in civil dialogues and conversations and debate with one another. We need to be rational actors, and it's more important now than it has been when we get bombarded with so much information every day. And our students, they want to have these skills too. There's a large number of students in the class today, and they're excited about the nature of the course. They're excited about the skills that we're working on, not necessarily that external validation that comes through the diploma program itself. This summer I was in Denver at the training. It was a great training there, and then also this summer I was in Salt Lake City for a College Board reading. So I went to grade 800 maybe. Well, together it was like 240,000 DBQs for AP World History, because I'm also teaching that. So it was a room of 500 of us, 8 hours a day, 6 hours. But in Salt Lake City, they gave an open house about AP Seminar and AP Research, and where schools were at the beginning of this in terms of the pilot and where they are now. This is going to be moving in a direction where UM and MSU and the other colleges, they're going to be clamoring for these students. And these students are going to be represented through the Common App, which is, it's nuts and bolts, but this year, the Common App, there's a little box. It's been there for a while, and that little box said one thing. It was the only thing in that box all these kids are filling out. IB diploma eligible. That was the only thing in that entire field, and the Common App is a big thing with all these things. And now right next to IB diploma eligible is capstone diploma eligible. And so colleges are knowing, they're recognizing through that Common App, it signals to them, these are students who have skills, these are the skills that you want as colleges. And the colleges drove this. They went to the College Board, they told them what they wanted, and that's where this course came. I'll take any questions you guys might have. I get excited about classes that I'm excited about. So yeah, anyway, yeah.
Any questions? Trustee?
Thanks. I'm excited about the paradigm shift because the AP courses sound very different than the ones that I took. So that's great.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how the students are identified for participation in these courses? Is it test scores? Is it something else? How do they become involved in these classes?
They register. So we don't have any prerequisites right now. We've discussed it possibly, but I don't know, we'll see where it goes. Right now there's no prerequisites. So we start, and that's for all our AP courses, I believe, other than maybe some of the math ones. But students just register for the course. We have a parent meeting in the spring, we have a student meeting in the spring, let them know what the expectations are, what that commitment is, and then they make it through the summer and we see them in the fall. So right now there's no identifier other than the individual conversation between teachers and counselors and students.
Hi, Principal Fuller mentioned a $654 cost. That's a cost to whom?
So that would be a cost to the student. That's looking at the minimum that you would need to earn the diploma, taking 4 other AP exams and the 2 AP exams for research and capstone. Research and capstone exams are higher priced because there's more validation in the requirements and training. Some of the tests for capstone occur within the school year. So there's a performance task 1 where it's a group collaborative research project and presentation. I score the presentation myself. Their research report for that gets scored by the College Board. Performance task 2 starts in the spring, and then they have another 6 weeks to work on that in class. I score that presentation, as well as defense questions, by the way, which is nice. And then the third performance task, they sit down and take a test. And so that's 134 or so times 2, and then 4 other tests at $93 each to $684. That's absorbed by the student.
And, sorry, just a quick.
I'll just piggyback on that really
Yeah.
quick. So last year, we had a need with a number of students that were unable to afford the cost of subject area AP exams, and the district, in partnership with Sentinel, funded that for those students. So we don't make cost a barrier to entry or completion for any student.
Thank you.
You bet.
And with the current AP seminar cohort, we have talked about doing a fundraiser. It would be voluntary based on the students. Some students get excited for that. Some students don't like selling at the concession stand. I don't know, just not their thing.
And you can see on the sheet I gave you, the second one, a side-by-side cost comparison between the AP diploma and the AP capstone diploma.
I want to follow up with one thing about which students end up taking AP courses, and I want to emphasize to you guys that the benefits of taking an AP course are immense, especially if they do so early on. So we at Sentinel High School, we offer AP World History, which I teach. The numbers are low. I think the numbers across all of our AP classes based on our demographics should be significantly higher. I have a few theories as to why. One of those I would encourage you to discuss as a board. We do not have weighted GPAs. That is a disincentive. The only motivation right now is an internal, intrinsic motivation with that little external credit, right, that comes there. Student, sophomore, is making a choice between a regular course and an AP course. One of those comes with a significant amount of external validation for learning, the test at the end of the year. The other doesn't. There is a gulf in rigor between some of our AP and non-AP courses. Let's give our students that little bit of an incentive to take that more rigorous course if we believe in it. And I know I'm soapboxing, sorry, kind of go after this. But if we believe in this, let's look at that. Because if you're taking a course, AP World, and you're in a school district that has weighted GPAs versus a student who doesn't, we're already starting that playing field, right? So let's, I don't know. You guys do what you think is best. Sorry. Other questions?
Are there students who take the AP tests coming out of Sentinel who don't take the AP courses? Is that a fairly common practice?
It's less common. We maybe have less than 5 a year who challenge the test. Often it's in foreign language, since we have AP Spanish, but we have 4-year students in French, some in Arabic who extend their learning at the university who might sit for those foreign language tests. We rotate courses we offer. For example, we did not offer AP Biology last year. It's back in the master schedule this year, yet we had a student who was a senior and wanted to challenge that test, and so took it. And, MTDA also offers a lot of advanced placement courses, and we have some students who do original credit AP via MTDA, and then they test at Sentinel under our testing conditions run by our coordinator. So, anywhere from 5 to 10 per year who don't sit in a subject area or capstone course at Sentinel. It's not common, but yeah, it happens.
I think it might increase with our computer programming courses because AP now has AP computer programming and that exam, and we're through the Project Lead the Way computer program. So very similar curriculum that'll be overlapped.
I guess I can't think of a way to put a question, but I noticed my child went through AP at Hellgate and went to college with a lot of AP background, and her confidence in herself and knowing she knows what she needs to know is just tremendous. And the college's confidence in the kids that have taken the AP curriculum, they're like, phew, because it's Montana's university. They've got kids from C schools that, they've got to catch a lot of kids up, and when they see the AP kids coming, they're just like, shoo, and their study skills are over the top. So I don't know, it's not a question. I just think it's a great program.
Yeah, and those soft skills that are inherent in a rigorous course, like your general AP course, AP seminar and AP research is all about those soft skills. And I'd like to extend an invitation to any of you this spring when we are presenting our performance task 2, the individual student presentation on their, it's not an original research question, but it's, you know, their final presentation of the course. I would invite any of you to contact me in April if you would like to sit in on those. And you're more than welcome to come visit the class at any point in time. So just feel free to send an email or reach out.
And we would love to be invited back in the spring and bring students and let them speak to the they've had this year, since that's really the reason we're in it. So if we could come back and have some of our capstone candidates speak to their experience, I think that'd be powerful.
And I actually had one question, but I was waiting
course.
till everyone else. So based on your incredible enthusiasm, do you think any other high schools in the state of Montana are moving toward a capstone program? Because I think the negotiations, you know, between Sentinel and U of M and MSU, if there's more than one feeder school, that would be of value, I would think.
So,
But I don't know.
I'm surprised and not surprised that Sentinel is the first and only. I think it speaks to the culture we've created in MCPS of innovation and leading from the front. I'm also surprised because my colleagues in the AA conference, I don't know. I don't know if the College Board hasn't done a great job with messaging. I'm not sure what the issue is. You know, I was at the AP or at the AA Principals Summer Conference and got a little bit, hey, what's up? I hear you guys are doing this, but nobody has reached out and said, help us. So our fall meeting is October 6th in Helena, and it's on our agenda. And Marcia, you bring up something that's powerful. You know, our ability to leverage the certainly MUS system is going to be greater if more schools offer the diploma. So it's on our agenda as principals for the week after next, and hopefully we'll see more come online. But I can't say enough about, the 21st century model and its emphasis on innovation is really why educators in Missoula have this mindset. What do we need to do to innovate and stay at the front? And so that's why it's here.
Could I add to that, if you don't mind?
No, go for
I
it.
know, you get the two of us together, it's going to
true.
last all night. So there's two things I'd just like to add. First, AP World History at Sentinel High School has been around for 5 years. It was the first AP World History course within Montana. And now you see AP World History in a number of different high schools in Montana. Yes, I do teach that as well. The principal was like, we want more AP classes, and I was non-tenured, and I was like, hey, I got an idea, right? So that worked. The other thing is, I think people are looking at, they don't quite understand that external diploma. So they're looking at that diploma saying, well, my students are already entering college with a bunch of credits. And I think as soon as other teachers and other districts start seeing the skills that are associated with this course, then things are really going to take off. So the AP research, that original research questions that students are writing a pretty much undergraduate level thesis paper in high school. And at other locations where they've implemented capstone, they're presenting alongside other undergraduate thesis shows in the spring at the university. And if we start working on those sort of things, then it becomes inevitable where people start seeing that. Furthermore, once students get into college, and they start looking at each other next to their peers, that's going to have a trickle-down effect where the students who go through this course of study in high school are going to be they're going to be leapfrogging above their peers later on in college. So I think those are my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Again, not to belabor the point, but I really appreciate the time and energy that's devoted on the part of the Sentinel staff and Sentinel leadership to take on a project like this. And Ezra, I couldn't think of a better evangelist for the program probably than what you've demonstrated tonight. But again, I think it does come back to our students. And as you all know, and I think just as clarification, students who do successfully complete the AP course exams do get university credit, and that's a huge bonus. And those credits, although you look at the total cost of a program, it may seem significant, much less expensive than if you take those credits on a university campus. And then to Ezra's comment about the carrot that you dangle in front of these kids to participate. Although this is 5 years old, I do know that on a college visitation with my own daughter, the question was asked from the audience of the admissions staff, what's most important when you're evaluating a student for admission? Is it the GPA or is it the SAT score? And the admissions officer's response was neither. Those are secondary. What's most important is the students access the most rigorous courses that are available at their high school. And that's true because, as Trustee Lorenzen indicated, that sends a message to the admissions folks that they understand what college level rigor is all about and have the study skills. And that's really an incredible value that, and a gift that we give our students. So I appreciate again your enthusiasm, your dedication, and thanks to you and the Sentinel staff for taking this project on.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you both. Now we'll move on to the topic of finance, operations, and maintenance. And so under B1 is our bi-monthly Smart Schools 2020 update. And so I don't know if I can move straight to Burley or if you want to introduce Burley.
I'll just make one quick comment, and that was September 15th, which I believe was a Friday. We actually signed and closed on sale of the remainder of the bonds. So we have taken care of the financing, again, for the public's understanding. We had, at the time we were promoting the bond issue, estimated a 4% interest cost. And our true interest cost on the second issuance was 2.86%, I believe. And that's on par with what we got on the first issuance. So the debt service that the community will serve over the life of the bonds is significantly reduced because we were able to capitalize on some excellent interest rates. And again, it was the work of a lot of people. Certainly we recognize that Burley and the O&M staff are heavily engaged. Pat and the business staff certainly, not only with management of the budgets, but with the sale of the bonds. And Holting and all the architects, engineers, and contractors with whom we're working. It's a massive project, but it's a really exciting project, and I appreciate everyone's efforts in that regard. So with that, we'll turn it over to Burley for a brief recap on Smart Schools 2020 projects.
Thank you. So just kind of go through some of the projects we have going on. With Russell, Willard, and Washington, those are still all in the permitting phase. We hope to see something from Washington back within the next few weeks where we can start doing some foundations and shell package, or foundation work, that kind of thing. Cold Springs is currently digging for foundations, so we should see some concrete there either later this week or early next, which is pretty exciting to start seeing the structure go up here soon. We have Hellgate is right on schedule. We have the kitchen will be back to us before Christmas. We should have the main entrance, the new main entrance, around Christmas time. Might look at haven't talked to Judson, so nobody tell him yet. But we might look at a mid-year move-in for administration down there. Kind of just depends on how that all flows out, but the schedule is that at this time. I don't know if anybody had seen the gym, the old second floor gym, that was full of scaffolding. It was quite the sight, to be honest. I mean, wall to wall scaffolding. I'm pretty sure, I think I said it in the previous board meeting where I think it was every piece of scaffolding in Montana, but it was a lot. It took about a week to erect and about almost a week to take apart. So it was a lot. That is now clear and out and just in time for Hellgate's homecoming week, which I believe is this week. So they'll be able to hold some festivities in there. Also looking at the fax room up in the library. So they're reducing the library and having that fax room, and we're hoping to see that available around Christmas time as well. So, and then they're working through the phasing of how they start putting in mechanical systems and start moving some classrooms around, where they're looking at moving like 6 classrooms around for a few weeks to get that mechanical section done, and then we'll move back in and move 6 more out, get the mechanical. So it's kind of, we're doing it on a vertical, floor 1, 2, 3, vertical plan. So which will make it easier with the way the mechanical systems are going in. We have permitting in place for the VOAG, and we will be discussing taking that out for construction here very soon, which is very patient staff out there at the VOAG. I'll tell you right now, it's been quite the process to get that going. And then with some excitement, Cold Springs, they are undergoing a name change for their new school. And Susan Daniel, sorry, has put together quite a plan. They recently polled all the students and all the staff to whether or not they wanted to keep the same colors, the same mascot, and a new name, of course. And it was about a 3-to-1 where they're going to get new colors and a new mascot. So pretty neat. And then they're going to put together some more options, get some more communication out to parents. I guess the kids were just tickled to be part of that process, so it was kind of a neat deal. And then we plan to bring some options to the school board for final approval. And we're hoping to have that happen by the end of October so that we can start getting, some of the design has to do with colors, has to do with naming and branding and badging and that kind of stuff. So we want to get that done before too long so we can have those plans finalized. And then reader boards. So we have some new reader boards coming in at Lowell and Franklin and Cold Springs and Chief Charlo and Rattlesnake. Chief Charlo has actually already been approved through the city, but those other schools are going to be at the Board of Adjustments tomorrow night with the city. And it is a process that we go through for all of our signage, and we do it for if there's we're going to put certain fencing in certain locations and that kind of stuff. And we went through it with Willard for the parking lot to get the parking lot approved because it was a little less, we were proposing a smaller parking lot than what was required by code. So those kind of things go through the Board of Adjustments. These signs are about, they're 2 lines is all, so they're only about they're a little less than 2 feet tall, and they're about 6.5 feet wide. And they're amber in color, just one color. They're not a bunch of different colors. And they do have, you can program them to where you want them on and off. So it'll help with some of the what we've heard be called light pollution in the neighborhood. So, Cold Springs is right there, Rattlesnake's in the neighborhood. So there's some really good things we can do with that to help reduce those issues. But the way the Board of Adjustments works is they take, you submit an application, they take all that information, what the size of the sign is, what it looks like, what it's going to be like, and they send it out to the neighbors within that school area and look for any kind of feedback. And so that feedback is presented at the Board of Adjustments tomorrow night, and we'll be there to listen and see what the community members have to say about the signs. So the ones at Lowell and Franklin are actually attached to the building, so they're just one-sided. And then the ones at Rattlesnake and Cold Springs are 2-sided, and they'll sit more close out in front of further away from the building, out closer to the street, so you can see them from both directions that you're traveling. So we'll have more information on that once tomorrow night's meetings is concluded. So other than that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions on the bond projects.
Well, I guess it was a great report since there's no questions. We'll look forward to hearing the updates at the next meeting as well. And so now we move on to B2, which is to grant permission to solicit a request for qualifications for a general contractor construction manager for Sentinel High School. And so this is something that the trustees have seen quite a bit. Well, we've seen this topic quite a bit, but this one is for Sentinel High School specifically. So Burley, do you want to walk us through? Is there something unique about this, or remind us why we do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a committee that we put together to select the general contractors for the projects. And this project is known as an alternate delivery process, and it's where we put the contractors on our team rather than just hiring them to build us a building. They come on our team to look at budgets and materials and how to procure those materials and how quickly we can get that. So they become another expert at the table, just like our architects and our owners reps, and it's a very organized and efficient way to go as far as my opinion goes. We've had great luck with it, and so we're in the process of selecting that for Sentinel now. And this is a little retroactive. It has been posted, so I do apologize for that, and we've already screened the applicants. We've had some great applicants that have applied for this project, but we want to make sure we got on the board. It's kind of under time constraint. We want to make sure, we've learned some lessons with the busyness of the city with issuing permits and procuring materials. I mean, when you're looking at steel and doors being 4 or 5 months out, it's really important that we get these folks on early as possible to help us schedule that material out and get everything organized and ready to go, so that we don't find ourselves in a bind come August when we're trying to open a school. You know, we're still doing a lot of work at Lowell. I'm kind of give a little example here. We're still working on some things at Lowell, and I remember thinking now with Sentinel, you know, 1 week for Sentinel construction, probably not too big of a deal when we're thinking now, but we would have loved to have another week for Lowell. I mean, that 1 week makes a big difference towards the end, so we're really just trying to be as proactive as we can, getting these folks out. So, and then what we'll do is we go through the RFQ process, request for qualification process. We screen them out, make sure they're qualified or not qualified. We take those that are qualified and we invite them to respond to a request for proposal, an RFP, which discusses their approach to how they'll deliver the project, how they'll deliver their pre-construction services, and then and how they'll do the bidding process, that kind of stuff, for the subcontracting. And then there's a cost to it as well, what their fees are, and we go through and score that as a committee, and we select up to 4 of those firms to bring them back for an interview process, and then we select a company from that, and we'll bring that back to you for approval as well at the end.
Any questions for Burley about this request from the administration? Seeing none, then is there a motion that we give the administration the ability to grant permission to issue a request for qualifications for a general contractor construction, not constriction, construction manager, not a manger. Didn't catch those 2 typos when I looked at this today. Services and associated with the renovation, remodel, and expansion of Sentinel High School. Moved by trustee Lorenzen and seconded by trustee Wake. Is there any board discussion? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, then all trustees in favor of the motion to grant permission to issue the request for qualifications for the GCCM for Sentinel High School, please indicate by raising your hand. And that's unanimous as to all trustees present. And thank you for all that good work, Burley, and especially lessons learned and get a little bit ahead of the curve. Seems like a really good idea. Then we move on to C1, which is to approve wage increase for certain defined employees. And so, Dave, who'd we leave out?
We haven't left anybody out. O&M has had difficulty trying to get substitute custodians, and we had some of the lowest rates in the market. Currently, we pay $9.50 an hour, so they were asking to increase that by 50 cents an hour to $10 an hour to help make it easier to try to recruit substitute custodians for the district.
Any questions for Dave? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve a 50-cent per hour wage increase for the sub-custodians that would be retroactively applied for the school year, it looks like?
To September 4th.
September 4th. Moved by trustee Wake. Is there a second? Seconded by trustee Smith. Is there any board discussion?
I'm sorry, not sure.
Trustee Wake and then trustee Smith. Okay. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Seeing none, other than thumbs up. All those in favor of the motion to raise the wage by 50 cents per hour for sub-custodians effective 9/4/2017, please indicate by raising your hand. And that's unanimous as to all trustees present. And then we move on to C2, which is an information item, which is to talk about K-5 leveling. So Dave, do you want to talk about leveling? I'm assuming this is talking more about involuntary leveling. I'm sure there's all kinds of leveling that occurs in the district, but I think the focus of the question from the last board meeting by trustee Lorenzen was about when we move people.
Correct. At the outset, Mark handed out a sheet which showed the current enrollment to just give a perspective, what this does, if you look, is it breaks down, shows the individual classrooms in the entire district. Those outlined in green would be at capacity. And let me back up for a second. When we talked about our student enrollment numbers last month, for accreditation, we have to have certain student numbers within a classroom. So in kindergarten, the maximum student count is 20, first grade is 20, second grade is 20, third grade it goes to 28, fourth grade is 28, and fifth grade is 30. So what that means is in order to meet state accreditation, we cannot have numbers over that. If we do have numbers that go over that, we have another student enrolls, for example, in a kindergarten that's already at 20, then we are required, in order to meet accreditation standards, hire overflow para is what we call them, which is 1.5 para per student over. I'm sorry, 1.5 hours. So we don't have half people working for us. So what this chart shows you in the green is shows you the classrooms that we currently have that are in K-5 that are actually at capacity. The yellow shows those classrooms that are over capacity. If you were to look at that, out of 166 classrooms currently, 37 of them are at capacity and 21 are actually exceeding those standards. What that would mean is that in any of those classrooms that you see in the yellow, those are classrooms that we have hired overflow paras to assist and to make sure we meet accreditation standards. Because of the costs associated, what we sometimes are required to do or try to do is to balance out our student numbers. And that gets to what your question was, Marcia, and the one question that we had last month, which was, so what does that mean when I get a telephone call from a principal that says, Dave, we're completely filled in kindergarten, another student is coming to enroll, what do we do with that student? The answer is always quite interesting. We look at those on a case-by-case basis. So let me give you an example. Last week, I was contacted by an elementary school who had 3 new students, a family move into their area. One of those students would have pushed a classroom over capacity. We don't break up families in the leveling process. And so in that situation, what we did is we actually went over accreditation. We'll hire a para because it didn't make sense to move 3 children across town for that. Give you another example. Rattlesnake Elementary has always been, if you notice down in the yellow, that's been one of the schools that we have the highest number of over capacity classrooms. The reason for that is because it's a long way from Rattlesnake to other schools, and so we try to avoid leveling students from Rattlesnake if at all possible. It came up again last week where we had another kindergarten student enrolling. The only classroom that I had that had any capacity for another kindergartner was actually Hawthorne. So I wasn't willing to take a singleton, a kindergartner, and level them all the way across town. We just don't want to do that. This year, so how many kids do we level in a given year? It varies. And right now, I'd say we're in about 22, 23 students or so in that area that we have leveled. Why am I not specific? Because there's some fluidity to it. For example, this year, when we were looking at our enrollment numbers, we had massive kindergarten enrollments at both Franklin Elementary and Lewis and Clark, well in excess of our capacity in those schools. What we did at Franklin, because we had a new school, because we had room, is we actually opened up another kindergarten classroom to make sure that we wouldn't go over capacity. At Lewis and Clark, the number was huge. I mean, we had like 15 students over, but we didn't have the capacity within that school to add another classroom. Cold Springs, on the other hand, was significantly under capacity in kindergarten. Because we had a large number of kids, what we did is we contacted those parents, we looked at the singletons, and by that I mean we don't break up families. So for example, if at Lewis and Clark or any elementary school we had a new incoming kindergartner, but there was already existing siblings within that school, we're not going to move one of those children to one school and keep the other kids at the other school. We don't want to break up the family. Because there was a large enough number, because we had a lot of capacity at Cold Springs, we moved a large group of kindergartners to Cold Springs. I would note, and you would note, that Lewis and Clark is still over capacity. We didn't move all of the kindergartners that we had extra over to Cold Springs. We just moved that one group. Lewis and Clark was probably our biggest school that we did that. We do not always level under every circumstance. We do what the process would be is that a principal would contact me. We make the decision based upon any circumstances that might be unusual. Are there siblings attached? How long have they been at that school? I look, for example, in a given area. For example, if you look at the Rattlesnake, the areas, the closest schools to that would be, say, Paxson and Lowell, but both Paxson and Lowell are already at capacity, so we would not move students to that. So we look at the distance traveled, we look at the students, the age of the students, and make a determination whether or not we're going to make that leveling decision. So while I said there was some fluidity to it, Lewis and Clark was a perfect example. We are over capacity in second grade, but we had an opening that dropped down in one of those grades, which created an opening. So one of those second grade students that had been previously leveled to Cold Springs Elementary, the parent was contacted by the principal today and said, we now have actually an opening back at Lewis and Clark. Would you like to return? At the beginning of a year, we find that parents frequently will do that. As the year progresses, it's less likely that that would happen. Because of connections with the school, with the families, and so people are more reluctant to move. But we don't mandate that they move back. So if they've been leveled to another building, they say, no, we'd like to try out this year and stay here, but call us next year. That's exactly what we do, and we provide the transportation for them throughout the school year. So maybe I should stop and answer questions that you might have regarding it. It seems like a complicated process, and sometimes is.
I would just throw out one clarification. Leveling occurs most predominantly at the K-5 buildings.
Almost
On the back side
exclusively.
of this sheet, just for your reference, I included the middle school enrollments. And again, with the same coding, we have one middle school class that's reported as larger than accreditation standards. We do not generally put paraeducators in those situations, but we have a number of middle school classes that are right at capacity of 30. If you look just in the K-8 district alone, we have 55 classrooms that are listed in the green, which means they're exactly at standard, and 22 classrooms in the yellow, which means they exceed accreditation standards. We don't have the specific numbers on high school right now. It's a little more dynamic at high school because each teacher is assigned 5 teaching periods, and one period might be over, but the other 4 may not be. So it's a little more challenging to put that data together.
Yeah, and I would note this year, I don't believe I've leveled any students at the middle school level, because if you look at those numbers, they're full. So I'm not going to level a student that's one over to a building that only has one opening. It just wouldn't make sense because you wouldn't have any capacity. So when we look at leveling, I do take into consideration how much room is available at that existing school. In other words, I don't fill another school up to capacity with a student from out of area, because then it puts us in that odd spot. What happens when somebody moves into that neighborhood and wants to enroll their student?
I'm just a little bit confused about reading the chart, because some of the numbers are yellow, which indicates that they're over capacity for some schools, but the same number is not yellowed for some of the other schools at the same grade levels. And so I'm just a little bit, are the capacities different in those classrooms, or is it just like making the chart error? Like, for example, in
Lowell, I noticed that. It would be, for example, that third classroom, the 21 should be in yellow.
and all of them in Hawthorne should be yellow as well, in third grade, correct?
No. Third grade there's a 28 capacity.
Then why are Lewis and Clark's yellow?
Lewis and Clark has the first grade, a 1-2 mixed class, and a second grade that has 2. That has 20. So they're, so are you looking at the,
Looking at the third grade, though.
No, Trustee Decker, I made a mistake when I coded the graph. And I think I probably got off because of the multi-age classrooms at Lewis and Clark.
Okay.
So if you look at Lewis and Clark, those 4 classrooms at third grade should not be yellow.
No, they're not.
Within standard, as is the case with Lowell's and Rattlesnakes. I was looking at that as the second grade column when I color coded
Gotcha.
it. So.
I thought it was probably
Thank you.
something like that, but it's just confusing because it makes it look like the situation at Lewis and Clark is pretty extreme when it's extreme
and Lewis
in
and Clark this year
kindergarten, but-
our issue was kindergarten and second grade.
Well, I'm glad you brought this to us because we get occasionally contacted from parents who have been leveled. There was some serious leveling went on at Rattlesnake last year.
Correct.
And I wouldn't want to do these side by side because there's individuals involved, but last meeting, we saw a list of students from outside Missoula County Public Schools that were enrolling. And that's really what brings the question to my mind. We were enrolling, I thought, quite an awful lot of numbers of kids from out of district. And then I would never want to see someone who lived here, especially lived in the district of their school, be told you can't go to that school while there's someone from outside our district in that school.
That's an absolutely great question.
And I'm sensitive to it because when I first moved here, and I went right to enroll, and they said, we know you live in the Rattlesnake, but your kid has to go to Meadow Hill. But I knew there were kids from Hellgate Elementary at Washington. And so I'm very sensitive to this. When we fill these schools up with out-of-district kids, we're going to hurt those kids eventually. And I don't think we have the courage to tell them to go home now because the school's full. So, you know.
I can tell you we've modified some of what we do. For example, so there was, we used to be more open with that. We are not anymore. I can't even tell you how many times I was contacted by principals that would receive out-of-area request that might live in the district but be out of area, or out-of-district request to move a student to a different elementary school for maybe daycare reasons or whatever. If we were within 1 or 2 or 3 openings at that school, we did not approve those. We did not ever, I mean, I'm actually extremely cognizant of that, having been a principal and a parent and having taken the parent complaints. I want to make sure that we don't ever ace anybody out in a neighborhood who lives there. So I will get calls from principals say, well, I have 3 openings and I have somebody out there would like to come, and the answer will be, nope, we're not going to approve that unless we have a significant number of openings. So I'm hoping that we don't have that occurring anywhere at this point.
I would just add that you're correct in that historically we've honored as many of those requests as we could. The principals were instructed that number one, they need to make sure they collect the out-of-district forms annually and that a tuition agreement needs to be in place. And number two, those are renewed annually. And in fact, we had several situations where students had been in an elementary school at 5th grade and we did not have capacity at 6th grade to honor out-of-district requests, and we did inform those families that they had to return to their home schools.
Any other questions for Dave or Superintendent? Trustee Smith?
I guess I just want to understand, when you were saying we don't break up the families, and if they're in a class, obviously we don't, and it sounds like in the middle of the year we won't kick them off, or I should say.
We won't move any student in the middle of a year. Once a student's been placed there.
But you offer it to them if they want it.
We do offer that. Right. And like I said, at the outset, for example, what happened at Lewis and Clark today, and I actually had that happen at Paxton this week as well, where a parent did elect to come back to the school. But frequently, parents do not do so. They're happy. We are blessed with a great school district, and once they get involved into a school, they're often very happy with that. Years ago, when I was a principal at Chief Charlo, there was a large group of first graders coming in that had to be leveled up to Chief Charlo, and I think we had like 9 kids that were leveled to Chief Charlo in first grade, and all 9 stayed for the remainder of their education, for their elementary at that time. And I would note that last year, you're right, we did move a large group of students out from Rattlesnake. But if you would note in the 2nd grade numbers, the reason we are over accreditation this year is we brought all of those students back to Rattlesnake. We did not put them in a different place, so we brought them home.
If I could just kind of follow up on that too, I guess I have two questions or comments. Number one, I think we've kind of discussed this a little bit, the trend of our leveling over the last few years. It sounds like we're doing less of it. And are the changes of school capacity, which we're clearly getting more capacity due to the bond, is that going to help us? Or is it more driven by, like, for instance, I see Rattlesnake with 4 kindergarten classes all over, and I know we have to compare in each of those classes. I assume that it's a financial decision to say, well, now it's going to be cheaper to get a classroom, get a full-time teacher, and make 5 classes of 18 as opposed to 4 classes of 26 or whatever the numbers end up being. So my 2 questions are, has our trend been going in the right direction, which it sounds like it has? Are the changes in school capacity due to the bond going to help this? I guess 3 questions. And is it more financial than space, like physical space?
Well, I wouldn't say it's more financial than physical space. There are times when for example, we didn't add an additional kindergarten because of space at Lewis and Clark this year. However, we did have the capacity with the bond passage, with the new construction in Franklin. It opened up a wonderful opportunity. It was great. The principal was beyond excited when I made the telephone call and said, hey, we're going to use one of our allotted FTE to open a new kindergarten there to keep those kids there. It was wonderful to be able to do that. So I would hope that as all the construction projects go and we have those extra spaces and extra rooms, that we're going to be able to accommodate and meet those needs in those areas. I mean, I know I've walked through Lowell and Franklin too, I guess, as well, with all that new construction. Most of those rooms, if you walk through them, have the capacity to be divided into two and to create additional classrooms, which is just wonderful. So as you can see, it's wonderful. Like I said, 35% of our K-5 classrooms are at capacity or over capacity. So I guess it's great that we've seen this level of growth and the numbers have been so strong. So I don't know, did I answer your question? Okay.
I would just add one additional comment. In our Smart Schools 2020, we determined that we wanted our elementary schools to have capacity of 450 to 500 students. If you look at Rattlesnake as an example, they're sitting at 485, a number of primary grade classes above capacity, fifth grade classes that are well below capacity, but you can see they are about at the level at which we would want to see an elementary building. Rattlesnake presents particular challenges to us. We did actually, by geocode, try to identify where students lived. We're at a point where at some point in time, we'll want to have conversations about Mount Jumbo Elementary out in East Missoula. Presently, we have only about 150 students in the Mount Jumbo area, so we're not at a point where we could consider reopening schools. But I do think that we will have to have a conversation about, do we retain the value that we placed on capacities in Smart Schools 2020 and stay below the 500, which might cause us to consider other alternatives, or do we consider exceeding that capacity? And it is both a financial as well as a space consideration. The buildings are built essentially with 21 regular ed classrooms, which is 4 classrooms at each primary grade and 3 classrooms at each intermediate grade. And if we were to look to exceed that by opening another section at one grade level, then we would have to be creative in terms of what space we capture in order to do that.
Thank you. Can I just wanted to follow up, but I'll
I guess, not to go down that track too far. So at Paxson with our project, we added 2 classrooms, right? Because they didn't used to have 21. Does that sound right? Paxson got more classrooms, right? And
Correct.
with the remodel. And then with Cold Springs, is there a possibility that it's set up for future expansion if needed in the design of that building?
That has not been discussed, although early in the process, we did say we ought to contemplate that. I really think that with 1,200 additional lots out in Linda Vista, the question is probably more, do we have to plan for the future with an additional property for long-term development out in the Cold Springs area, or would we again want to exceed the 500 student limit? There are 1,200 plotted lots out in Linda Vista, Maloney Ranch that are not yet developed. So for the long term, we need to consider that.
Sort of tagging on that discussion of Mount Jumbo and Rattlesnake, you know, of course, the Lowell kids bust out to Jumbo all last year, which certainly seems like a shorter commute than busing up the Rattlesnake. So just curious as to whether in the future, as an intermediate decision, something would be done with districting so that some of those East Missoula kids would come to Lowell's direction before the question of reopening Mount Jumbo, if that's part of the conversation.
It certainly could be, and I do think that we will ultimately have to look at boundaries once we've completed all our construction projects and have capacity. The reason I cite Mount Jumbo is it was more a curiosity on my part, how many of those students reside in East Missoula, and again, the neighborhood school concept. Quite simply, the answer presently is that we don't have enough students in East Missoula to sustain a school without busing in. So you're quite right, we might be looking at other alternatives in the near term.
and this may be getting off topic, so you can say we can address it at a different point, but the general trend in population, student population is rising. Now, clearly, that brings in more A and B, which then allows us, and I guess my point is, I'm just thinking about the financial aspect and whether, for teachers and stuff. If we have more kids than we planned, that allows us to get more A and B, which may allow us to hire more teachers, I guess is my point. And judging from the examples we've seen tonight, I think we're pretty good, so I'm looking forward to that.
I think that's true. Remember, A and B lags a year behind the enrollment figures, which is one challenge. I think the second challenge is, although A and B increases and thus the financing stream, we also lost some other revenue streams in the last legislative session. The natural resource development payment, the data for achievement payment, and of course, our self-executing formulas, the inflationary factor was only 0.5 instead of the 1.37 that we should have received statutorily. So the enrollment increase is good because next year we'll see additional A and B, but we also lost other revenue streams that will cause us to have to be very conservative in our budgeting.
Other questions? Well, if you look at the agenda, then we're on to public comment, but we're not at the end of the agenda, and that's because there are limited circumstances in which the board can sit in executive session, and litigation strategy is one of them. And so we're going to have a continued board meeting with just the trustees and our legal counsel after public comment, if there's any additional public comment on non-agenda items, and we'll take a short break so that everyone else can clear the room. And so before I take public comment, I guess I can announce it either time, or do I have to wait until after public comment, Megan, to announce that I find that since we're meeting in executive session because of litigation strategy conversations we're about to have?
I would do it after public comment.
Okay, so I'll formally explain why we're doing it after public comment. Is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, then I declare that because the topic is litigation strategy, the school board will continue to meet in executive session, and we will only discuss that particular topic. And so we'll take a 5-minute break to let everyone else clear the room. And Elizabeth, I'll take notes if you want to be able to go home.